it's a community with a standard. Everything in life, from work to school to really anything competitive or high end, has some kind of requirements. And if you are say that we are gatekeepy, then you would have to argue all those things are gatekeepy. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a standards and requirements, and I don't think there's anything wrong with our requirements right now.
Today we're talking with Harumi. There, for those who don't know, Harumi is a top-ranking Bard player for pretty much every single tier of Eden thus far. But more importantly, they're the founder of the Crystal data center Parse Discord, Crystal ERParsers. So we're gonna be talking with him today. At the end, we'll open it up to the chat and ask whatever questions you guys may have. But for now, let's pick his brain with some questions that people have given me, I've written down, he's written down, and we'll dive into it. So let's pull Harumi over. What's up, Harumi? How was your day?
Good morning, everyone. It is a bright and beautiful morning.
Yeah, it's
I
pretty bright
am
on in my
doing
room, yeah.
pretty well. I just got off of work not too long ago. What about you?
I'm doing all right. Work was pretty rough today, but it happens. It's part of work. I feel like I say that every time that I come on to this show and someone asks me how my workday was. I'm like, yeah, it was all right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, work is work sometimes. It happens.
Yeah. Yup. But yeah, so I guess we could just dive right in.
Yeah, sure.
We'll go ahead and start with how long have you been playing Final Fantasy 14? Just so everyone's aware, we get that out the way.
Ooh.
You a veteran,
So
you're a noob. What's up?
I am a veteran. I've technically been playing Final Fantasy since early ARR. I tried it by myself at first, but I couldn't get into it because the leveling was just awful. And then not too long after, some of my friends were playing. Well, more accurately, one of my friends were playing, and everyone else played because of that friend. And so I played since then. I played, I think it was back when Titan hard mode was relevant. So around that time is how long I've been playing. But I didn't get in hardcore into raiding until early Stormblood during the 04S tier with Neo X Death.
How do you think the Stormblood raids compare to like nowadays? Because the only experience I have with them are kind of, either doing extremes for a mount or something, or going back and doing it for like a blind prog, or clearing it to unlock an ultimate or something like that.
I think that the Shadowbringer raids now are good. They're pretty good. However, I still strongly prefer the Stormblood raids.
Interesting.
I felt like they had more variety, more team mechanics, and more personal responsibility, and as well as it was very thematic because they were based off of different Final Fantasy games, and there were just a lot of really cool mechanics and skills and animations and effects and stuff. They were a lot of fun. They were very enjoyable. And I'm not saying that just because they were my first raids.
Yeah.
But like they were a lot of fun. I think for the players who are just starting off Final Fantasy or who only started doing Shadowbringers, it is very much worth it to go back and do the Stormblood raids. Preferably synced, or even better yet, what you can do if you want to keep your level 80 skills or 90 skills in Endwalker is you can do it unsynced, but give yourself the gear that was respective of the tier that it came out. So you would buy gear that was appropriate for that time.
Gotcha.
And that's a good way to re-enjoy the content.
So what is your favorite fight from Stormblood, do you think?
Ooh, probably 08S God Kefka.
Yeah.
And Kefka in general. I really enjoyed the random mechanics and the responsibilities that it gave everyone, and also it was just a very cool fight.
Sure.
But 012S with male and female was very close. That was also a very good fight.
So back then, like, I know now you're playing Bard. You've been playing Bard since we met. Even before we met, you were playing Bard since I knew you. But were you still playing Bard back then, or was that more of a recent thing?
I actually was. So I started off Final Fantasy, not even raiding. I was a crafter main. Like, that was my jam back then. I spent literally all day just crafting and gathering stuff for fun. Like, that was fun to me.
Sure, yeah.
Crafting and market board PvP was the game I played until I got into raiding during Stormblood. It's not that I didn't do the raids during AR and Heavensward. I did do them, but I did them very casually, and I didn't go hard into them. I didn't like study my rotation. I didn't study the fights. I just did them to get them done.
Fair enough. Well, I guess let's go ahead and talk about the Parse Discord, and then we'll kind of loop around, full swing back to talking about you towards the end, and then
sure,
I think that'll be a good direction to kind of head in. So, you run a Discord server called Crystal ERParsers. Can you elaborate kind of like what this Discord's for? Why did you decide to make it? How do people get in, etc. For those who either A, may not be familiar with it, or B, just want to know more information about it.
So Crystal ERParsers originally was a Discord made with just myself and some players I parsed with often. Basically, a lot of the top players on Crystal back during the days of the Gate tier. But right now, what Crystal ERParsers is and has become is a Discord and a community for the high-end raiding community of Crystal, and even more so once cross data center travel comes out, it'll be for really all of NA pretty much, because my assumption is that it'll be across data centers only within the same region.
Sure.
But Crystal ERParsers is a place for the high-end community to gather together and just talk and have fun, but also be able to find high-quality parties with people who have a like-mindedness on and desire to optimize, whether that be parsing or speeds, and both are equally important. Although the original purpose was parsing, but we are expanding to basically all forms of high-end optimization. As for how I decided the name, it was originally just Crystal Parsers because I wanted to represent the Crystal community, and because I chose parsers originally because when people generally think of high-end content, they think of parsing. They don't necessarily think of the other aspects of high-end content, like speeding or effective prog, for example. They really just think of parsing, and that's because of ACT and FF logs and whatnot.
Right.
So, and then it evolved, and so I made the FF logs. I thought it would be funny to call it ERParsers, because people tend to meme on Crystal to be all about ERP, and I just thought it was a funny name. There's really no other reason than I thought it was a good segue into Crystal and that it was funny.
Sure. Yeah, I mean it's pretty hilarious. Like, I think it's clever, but
and we're officially now, Discord itself is also now officially called Crystal ERParsers to match the FF logs.
So you did say like a few minutes ago that you were looking to expand in the cross-world data center unlock thing for NA specifically.
Yeah, once NA unlocks, I expect us to have more people from other data centers. We actually already have a good amount of high-tier players from other data centers who wanted to come to Crystal, partly to see what Crystal is about, partly because their data centers are currently less active for parsing and high-end activities, and they wanted to scratch that itch.
I mean, that's a fair reason to come over.
Yeah.
We all have that itch to.
Yeah, it's all about just gaming how you want to game, and like I said, this Discord is for those who want to push themselves and who want to become better and who basically want to be one of the best or even the best that they can be comparatively.
So how do you even get into the Discord in the first place? What are the requirements? I can pull up the requirement page on the card that you guys have. Can you kind of walk me through that, or anyone who's curious?
Yeah, so essentially there's a couple of requirements that we have to join the Discord. Although we have a separate process that even if you meet the requirements, there's a couple other things you have to go through. Basically, we have a vetting process. Effectively, the on-paper requirements is that one, you have to want to actively either parse or speed, or just in general do high-end content. And number two, you have to have cleared the last fight of the tier without echo. In this case, it would be E12SP2's synced because of the tier we're in. And the last requirement, the more serious requirement, I would say, is that you have to already have 3 oranges and 2 80+ purples. And this is to make sure that we get high quality parties and applicants that show that they have the capabilities and the desire to parse. And also because of the way parsing works, and speeds work as well, it's very important to have members who can output good damage for our DPS jobs that rely on other jobs to do damage into their buff windows. And finally, the last requirement that it's not shown is that part of the there's 2 parts to the vetting process. The first part is that we have a team of very highly skilled players who are either one of the top or the top of their job, and we have them review your logs, and we have them give you feedback on things that you are doing well, things that you could improve on, and things that you might be missing. And if you pass that first part, then you move on to the second part, which is where the community vets you based on your personality and how their experience with you. And that's in order to make sure we don't have any people who are like overly toxic or negative, or basically anyone who would be some kind of detriment to the community. Because even if you have really good parses, if you're an asshole to everyone, nobody wants to be around you. Nobody wants to play with you. And I want to segue this into talking about how a lot of the Final Fantasy community misunderstands people who do high-end content, and in general, people who parse or speed, and think that those people are very elitist or gatekeepy.
Yeah.
And I would honestly disagree with that, and here's why. First off, I'm gonna talk about the gatekeeping. Some people would say our requirements are gatekeeping, but I don't think that's true. Again, the reason why we have these requirements is to maintain a high standard of quality of the parties that form within the Discord, because we fill mostly privately and then we go publicly, but most of the time we fill completely privately. And we have to maintain that standard. We have to make sure everyone is getting what they need, especially the RDPS jobs that once again rely on other classes to do damage within their buff windows. The other thing is that it's not gatekeepy. I don't believe so, because it's a community with a standard. Everything in life, from work to school to really anything competitive or high end, has some kind of requirements. And if you say that we are gatekeepy, then you would have to argue all those things are gatekeepy. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a standards and requirements, and I don't think there's anything wrong with our requirements right now. As for the elitist, I guess in the most literal dictionary definition, we are elitist in that we only accept a certain minimum. But again, it's not really elitist in the colloquial expression, the way the people use it nowadays, which is basically toxic and just mean and cruel to people who don't play as well, and that's not true. Most of the people in the Parse Discord are actually very reasonable and willing to help, especially if you're willing to learn. Most of them will definitely teach you, and most of them, quite frankly, don't really care about how well you do. They care about how well they do.
Sure.
They want to improve themselves. Whether or not you do well is is another thing entirely. It's only an issue if you're literally griefing the party and causing deaths or wipes all the time, but that's not elitist. Anyone would be upset if someone just constantly caused deaths and wipes to the same mistakes over and over and didn't take feedback, didn't learn, didn't want to try.
Well, and
That's just natural.
that's part of your vetting process as well, right? Like your application
Yeah.
process is trying to make sure that like these are people that want to be there, they want to put in the effort and get better and
Yeah,
grow
exactly.
with the rest of the people. So
Yeah. You could really sum up the Discord and say it's a Discord about growth in Final Fantasy in terms of your skill level.
sure.
That's really what the Discord is about. It's ultimately about raising the crystals community of the crystal community skill level, and just encouraging growth and optimal play.
Yeah, and I really liked how you answered the like part about gatekeeping. Like I really liked how you worded that because you're right. Like anything in life has some kind of requirement to get into it, whether it's a very strict requirement or it's something lax. But like you go to a job, you apply, you go through an interview, you get into it. Like there are guilds or free companies, as they call them in Final Fantasy, where you apply to the free company, even if it is a casual guild, and then you may or may not get in depending on your qualifications. And like the people who are at the higher end of Final Fantasy 14, who again are DPS classes, or they need specific kill times, they need people who can do mechanics properly. They want to play with people who have the similar mindsets to them and are going to put in the
Right.
time to get better and learn and grow. So I really
Right.
like
That's completely right.
how you worded that. That was really well
Yeah,
put.
it's just, yeah, a lot of people misunderstand the high-end community. It's not some toxic or elitist community. It's just a bunch of people who really like getting better. That's
Yeah.
really all it is. That's what it comes down to. And we just happen to have the same mindset. That's really what it is.
So the current requirements are 3 oranges and 2 purples during 5.4. And I'm guessing you do like a comparison from the current tier to 5.4's tier, or do you just use 5.5's logs?
As it is now, because it's quite late in the tier, we do pretty much use 5.5. But if your 5.5 looks awfully close to the borderlines, then the admins will take a closer look.
Sure.
But even if you don't meet the full requirements, we do have a process that we called interim, which is where if you meet most of the requirements, you can still get in, and we will give you approximately 30 days from when you get in to meet the full requirements and to be a permanent member of the community.
That's awesome. I think that's a really great way to like help, you know, inspire those people who are like, man, I really want to get into parsing, but like I'm not quite there yet. I don't really know where to start. But yeah, I think that's a great way to help
and
give those people a way to go or direction to go.
Yep. And the other thing is, even if you don't get in the first time, you can always apply again. And the other thing is, even if you do get denied like a time or two, we always give you that log review and we tell you what you can improve. And so far, we've been told that it's been very helpful and effective. Our log reviewers are very in depth. Some of our log reviews are literally like 15K words, 15K characters, 15K words. Like they give you very in depth reviews to help your overall play and for you to help you get where you want to be to get to the high end. Because again, we really want to help raise Crystal skill level and raise the high end community of Crystal.
Good goal. So what are your suggestions for someone who's like not quite there in terms of the requirements? Like what are your suggestions to them to getting into the Discord, because they want to get in, but they're not quite there yet and they still have some work to do?
What I would say is it depends on where you currently are in your Final Fantasy experience right now. If you are just starting off and you're a beginner and you've barely rated your like grays and greens and stuff, you want to start off by going to the balance, because the balance as it is now, a lot of high tier players don't use it for high tier content right now. That's to be changed, but that's a whole different discussion. But it is very good for teaching you the core basics, and for the opener, they are very excellent at teaching you the basics you need to know. And one of the most important things that people make a mistake is they don't press enough buttons. And I don't mean that as a meme. I mean that literally. I mean that
Yeah.
what people do, what happens is that they think so hard on, oh, what button should I press, that they stop pressing buttons for 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds. And if you literally press buttons consistently, even if they're the wrong buttons, you'll actually end up with a higher parse. Now, that's not to say you should randomly press buttons, but you should try to, the main number one thing is to keep your GCD rolling. Try to keep pressing buttons and slowly think about what you are pressing and see, and think about, I messed up that time. I should have pressed this, and that. Next time I do a fight, I'm going to try and keep track of that. I'm going to try and be mindful of what I did wrong. Basically, you want to keep actively thinking about what you did right and what you did wrong and keep improving. Now, once you're in like the high green, blue, and like low purple territory, that's when you start to hit the part where you're starting to get better. You're rolling your GCDs consistently, and you're starting to begin to creep into optimization. At that point, what I would suggest is, if you have a friend or someone who can mentor you, then you should try and get connected to them, because they can help you out a lot. However, a lot of people don't have that option. So what you can do is you can ask around in the balance and ask the mentors and ask people to do full-on log reviews for you.
Yeah, I've seen that done a few times actually.
Yeah, the balance is still very good for like log reviews, and they're good for beginners and intermediate players. So they'll help you out a lot. There's a lot of people from the Parse Discords, various Parse Discords, Crystal, Aether, and Primal, who are either mentors or helpfuls, or people who are willing to do it for basically nothing at all just because they want to help. They're willing to help you and review your logs and tell you what you can do. But what it comes down to is just reading all the guides you can read, watching videos, watching how certain top tier players do certain mechanics, not even just rotations, but how they do mechanics in order to get the most uptime is very important as well. But the main thing is focusing on mechanical consistency and your rotation. Just be cognizant of your mistakes and keep working every time, and you'll eventually get there. If you are close and you have, say, like all purples, what I would recommend is that you go ahead and apply for interim and just see what feedback you get. Again, if nothing else, you will get excellent feedback. You may not get in, but you will get excellent feedback. So if you are at least all purples, I strongly recommend you apply, just so you can at least get help.
And then if you really do want it, like, and you take that advice, you can move up and reapply and hopefully get in.
Yeah.
We've
awesome. Had people reapply 1 or 2 times and they'll eventually get in, and they do excellent. Some of the people have gone from being purples in 1 tier to literally top 20 in their job, just from trying really hard, being cognizant, asking other top tier players who have done some of the work and stuff like that. And again, once you apply and you get your feedback, the people who do your reviews are actually still open to you asking them questions. So once you get the reviews, we connect you with a mentor. So if nothing else, I do strongly recommend you apply if you're starting to hit the purple territory, so that we can at least connect you to a mentor whom you can ask questions. And yeah, That's really what I have to say for someone who wants to get in and but isn't quite there yet.
Oh, that's great. I remember when I first joined, I was preposterous purple.
Yeah.
It was an intimidating experience, but
Yeah.
we grow
That's
and we move on and we learn.
That's a good segue. I guess we can talk about the roles we have. So
sure, yeah, go for it.
In Discord, the roles are basically split on your logs, and if you have 4 out of 5 purple, you have the purple role. If you're 4 out of 5 orange, you get the orange role. 4 out of 5 pink, you get the pink role. And if you are top 20 for your job, you get the gold role, which is currently the final role. But in Endwalker, there is going to be another role that adds in, 2 more roles. One role that is for tentatively right now getting a top 60 speed kill, and another one for getting both top 15 and a top 40 speed kill tentatively. And this is to encourage the other aspect of the high-end community, the high-end play, which is speeding, which a lot of people don't understand about as much as parsing. Long story short, the biggest difference between parsing and speeding is that parsing is actually very selfish, and it's about how much personal DPS you can do, while speeding is all about how much damage can I put under raid buffs in order to raise the entire raid's total DPS so that we can kill the boss as fast as possible. That is the long story short. There are other nuances to speeding, but I don't think that's the discussion right now.
It can get in depth, yeah.
Yeah, so those are our color roles, and they've been very effective. I've seen a lot of people grow very well. Like you said, you joined as someone who was all purples, and then you became a top 20 ninja, and now you're playing samurai. So people grow a lot, and from the Parse Discord, there have been a lot of excellent groups that have cropped up, like No Thoughts Head Empty, and even Sleepocat, which is which you interviewed, Jackal, their ninja, and they actually came out of the Parse Discord as well, or a lot of their members did anyways. And a lot of speed groups on Crystal or Parse groups on Crystal pull from the Parse Discord when they either need a sub or they're looking for more members. Of course, they have their own vetting process, but when you're looking for a team of 8, you're going to have your own personal requirements. And one of the biggest thing is whether or not you mesh personality-wise. Yeah. Because again, you want to still have fun while achieving your goal. So you want people who will match the group's who will match the group's tone, and whom you'll have group synergy with.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of people overlook the actual like mental, I guess, game of parsing and speeding, with that you have to like be able to actually interact with people and like be able to communicate well. I feel like people brush that off. It's like, oh, I just need to press my buttons. Like, nah. You want to play in a team, you kind of have to learn how to communicate.
You have to learn how to communicate, yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I guess if everyone is really good, I guess you can technically just press your buttons, but realistically speaking, you'll get acclimated faster and you'll reach your goals and reach your goals faster if you actually communicate. So really, communication really is a lot of the game.
Yeah. And that's a good point as well. To touch on something you said a little bit ago, like a lot of the people wouldn't have even met without that server, and I think a lot of us have a lot of respect for the server itself, and like we want to give back and help it. So just know that we're thankful, at least I am, and I hope I can speak on behalf of like a lot of the people from the Parse community that are watching. Like, we do care. We appreciate everything you've done for the data center itself. So we literally wouldn't be where we are without what you've done.
Yeah, I'm glad to be a part of it, because again, this is another excellent segue. Boy, was parsing before the Parse Discord really awful. I'm gonna be honest. So Before the Parse Discord,
I had the luxury of just living with it pretty much my whole experience. So please go on.
oh my god, before the Parse Discord existed, right? So before the Parse Discord existed, if you wanted to do high-end content, what you would do is you would literally make a PF in a Party Finder, and you would sit there for hours and hours and hours, hoping that it would fill, because you had no idea who was on. You had no idea if anyone was going to show up. You had no idea who was going to show up. There was no vetting process. Now, there were other small discords that existed that had parsing communities, but they weren't for the parsing communities. They were really friend discords. Basically, one person had friends who liked parsing, and they invited people who like parsing, and they used it as a secondary means of parsing, but they tended to be very unorganized. And if there was any kind of organization, they were organized to be for the server owner's social aspect, for their personal uses, basically. So there was no streamlining before the Parse Discord happened, and that was very frustrating, which is one of the reasons why I made the Parse Discord. The Parse Discord effectively exists, honestly, because I knew a lot of the top players, and basically I had the connections and the willpower to make it happen. That's really why the Parse Discord exists. Not to toot my own horn, but that is why it exists pretty much.
I mean, that's
yeah,
point. I mean, I can't argue with that.
Before the Parse Discord, it was the Wild West. Like, it was a lawless land back then.
Sure.
There was just no central hub for like-minded people to get together for the high-end community. It was wild.
So it started from like nothing, kind of got pretty big. I'm assuming that it's way bigger than you thought it would have ever gotten. How many members are you guys at now?
So we recently removed people who were extremely inactive, as in they never participated, and we're down to just under 300 members. If I remember correctly, it's 284.
Okay.
Is I believe the number. And it has definitely grown far beyond the proportions of what I originally anticipated, because when I first made it, I was thinking that it was literally just myself and other people who I directly knew who liked to parse.
Sure.
And then it became a community Discord, and it has had a lot of growing pains, because as a community evolves, you always have growing pains, because you have to decide what direction is the community going? What is the community for? What do you want to do with it? And there was a lot of figuring it out that I had to do, and thankfully I had some excellent admins who helped me along the way, and also other people who helped me along the way, and people gave their feedback and changes were made based on that.
I kind of want to touch on that as well, is like the community obviously is becoming more social as it gets bigger.
Yeah.
So kind of making sure that you're meeting the expectations of the Discord itself. How do you keep the Discord like pointed in the direction that you think or want it to go? And how do you like make sure that the people who maybe are somewhat frustrated, like at least get their point across and are being heard, as well as the people who are also happy with the direction of the Discord and happy with the direction it's been going? Like, how do you balance those two, and how do you keep it just moving forward in the direction that you want it to go?
That is a very difficult question, because I'm still honestly not 100% sure.
Sure.
Finding that right balance is very difficult, because you have so many people, you have different groups of people within our larger community, and each group and individuals as well have their own opinions of how the high-end community should be, how the Discord should be. Originally, I had a more laissez-faire attitude and just let the community regulate itself. It worked at first because, well, the community was small. There was really not much to do or much to regulate. But since then, part of the growing pains has been to learn how to balance the different people who, for example, want higher requirements, people who want lower requirements, people who think we should let certain groups of people in, people who think we shouldn't let certain groups of people in, and so on and so on. Basically, what I do is I talk it out with I think about it myself, and then I talk it out with my admin team, and then I present it in what our community Discord calls the server meta. And while server meta is kind of a lawless Wild West in and of itself in an isolated zone, there is still some good feedback and back and forth and stuff that goes through. Because at the end of the day, while people are talking or arguing with each other, the feedback, the person who it really matters that the feedback goes to is me, and I'm just reading different people's feedbacks to get different opinions so that I can better think about how I can take the Discord in a good direction that, again, raises up Crystal and raises up the community's standards and level of play, and raises the Parse community, speed community, high-end community, and in general, just it helps me. It does help me think about where to take the Discord. And of course, again, after I do all that, I go back through the process. I think about it myself again. I talk to my admins again, and then I make a final decision.
Yeah,
and I just do my best because, and that's one of.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Finish. No. I don't want to cut you off.
I was gonna say, that's one of the caveats of leadership.
Yep.
In any kind of leadership position, whether it's online or in real life, you can never ever make everyone happy. You can only take everyone's feedback and make changes and decisions that you believe is for the best for the majority. And at the end of the day, you have to be conscious of that, and you have to not beat yourself up over not making everybody happy, because again, that is just literally impossible. There's way too many people. I mean, if there was only 10 people, it's not that hard to make most people happy. But when there's a growing number, it's just very hard, basically impossible to make everyone happy. You just have to make decisions that you think is for the best, and you live with those decisions.
And I think you made a good point earlier of saying that, going back to the core values of what you state the server is for, right? Like pushing this data center, Crystal, to be better as a whole, pushing the raiding community to be better as a whole. And as you bring the bottom up, those bottom, quote unquote, bottom players will help the upper end players as they intermingle with each other and help each other. It's a win-win situation for everyone.
Right. And that's actually a great point. So a lot of our high-end players, they don't exclusively stick around in the high-end circles. Almost no one does that. Most people have friends who are more casual and who like different aspects of gameplay, whether it's casual raiding or RPing or different content than what they focus on. A lot of them will try and slowly get their friends into the high-end community, and they'll connect them through the Parse Discord, connect them to people who can help them, and connect them to people who are like-minded, and just give them a taste of what the high-end community has to offer. And most people really do try to encourage the casual players who are getting more into raiding, or more seriously into raiding, or even just getting into raiding, because a lot of us, we have pings all the time in the Parse Discord where people will ping saying, hey, I'm trying to get my friend a clear for this current tier fight, I don't know, E9S. I'm trying to help them get an E9S clear. Can anyone help? And usually we'll have at least one or two people willing to help, and who are willing to give feedback, and who are willing to teach, and so on. So the Discord is actually, a lot of people do actually really try to help, not just the high-end community, but the greater community of Final Fantasy in and of itself.
Awesome. I'm a big fan of trying to help people, and especially those that want to learn. I will sit down with someone for hours. Like I don't even have to know who they are, and I'll just help them, especially if they're just a sponge, you know. Like
Right.
I love helping people like that.
Right. And
So
right.
having others that you can kind of be around and communicate with that are willing to do that with you when you are trying to be the sponge is just, it's such a great thing to have, and such a good can't think of the word that I'm looking for right now, but it's a good thing to have.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a good tool to have.
And even from like a teacher's perspective, it's always easier to teach someone who's a sponge and who's willing to learn. And like the biggest thing I can recommend people who are shy or afraid to ask someone who, I don't know, maybe you see them in Limsa and they have like an ultimate title, or you've seen their name on logs, don't be afraid to ask them. And if they don't respond to you, don't think that it's not because they don't want to respond. A lot of times it's because they're AFK.
Yep.
Because man, do high-end players like to literally AFK emote in like Limsa or Ulta or literally anywhere. Literally just AFKing their game, like eating up their power bill.
I'm actually AFK'd in Limsa right now.
I actually log off, but I'm saying this because I know a huge number of people in the high-end community literally just AFK and do not log off.
Yep, been there. And
the best thing I can recommend is just try and DM them, and if you keep DMing them, they'll eventually respond to you.
Yeah.
And if you can get a Discord, because it is way easier to respond to Discord than it is in game. Like for me, I have specific tabs, so I pretty much never see in-game chats when I'm online. So if someone doesn't DM me on Discord or get in touch with me another way, I pretty much won't see your message.
Yeah,
just personally.
I feel the pain of AFKing, and then I'm scrolling through my message logs. I'm like, oh, that was 30 minutes ago. Someone telling me hi. It's like, oh, this is awkward.
Yeah, it's awkward, and then you also feel bad that you didn't get to talk to them.
Yeah, and pro tip for anyone that does want to AFK, now that they have the little like auto kick thing, you just go to your HUD edit thing and you leave that up. It won't kick you out of the game. So, little known fact. Maybe everyone already knew that, and I just found that out recently. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good way.
So let's talk. We've talked a lot about the Parse Discord. If there's anything else you want to talk about with it, I'm more than happy to keep going about that. If not, we can talk about you. So you have any more stuff you want to talk about with the Discord? Go for it. I'm more than happy. That's why we're here.
I guess the last thing I can say is that what I want to do with the Discord is to keep encouraging growth in all ends of high-end optimization.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the Parse Discord has historically been focused on parsing, but starting next expansion, I want to also segue into speeding so that people can get a taste for speeding and its niche efforts and its niche gameplay, and just getting a taste for speeds and knowing what it's like and seeing how fun it can be and how it can be very different from parsing, because again, parsing is rather selfish, whereas speeding is all about team play. And if you want to be a truly top tier player, you have to understand how to do both. You have to understand your rotation enough to the point where you can say, oh, this is how I play if I want to get a good personal parse, and also knowing how to also say, oh, this is how I feed into buffs so that I can help my team get the fastest kill. It is very important to understand both to be a truly top tier player. If you want to be a really top tier player, the best of the best, it's not only about your logs, it's deeper than that. It's about, number one, of course, mechanical consistency, and that's generally just doing the mechanics and also secondarily being good at greeting as well, because that's a very important part. there's the level of just being able to do the mechanics consistently, and then there's being able to greed consistently. Those are two different levels, and you have to be able to do both if you want to be truly top tier. And then you also have to be really good at the personal DPS, so you have to be good at parsing. So you should have very good personal parses. And then finally, again, you should be able to get good speed kills with a good team, because then it shows that you understand how to feed into buffs and how to be a truly team player. And you have to be able to do all of those aspects if you want to be the best of the best.
I agree. Especially the balance of like consistency and greeting. That's something that I think a lot of people overlook, and it can be frustrating, you know. You get into a parse party and it's like, man, we've had 10, 12, 15 pulls now. We haven't gotten a single clear because we're just being inconsistent. And it might not even be anyone in particular. It could just be like the whole group as a whole. Like it's happened. There's days where it's just like one thing one person keeps messing up on, and then another mechanic of someone else. So like learning consistency, I think, is humongous, and then learning how to pair that with greed it's a very valuable skill to learn. And it's very difficult skill to learn.
For sure. Yeah, that's definitely a big part. And like you said, it's usually never consistently one person. It's usually one person one time and then one person another time, and it just keeps going from there. But sometimes it rarely is one person consistently, and those are the times where you have to be able to say, oh, I'm having a bad day. I'm going to bow out and show respect to everyone else. It's not that I'm bad, but I'm having a bad day. Everyone has a bad day, even the best of the best players, even the most consistent.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. It's everyone has that day. Everyone.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I remember there was one day we were doing E5S a while back, and for some reason, I was playing Dancer, right? And for some reason, I could literally not do the knockback, and I killed us like 4 times, wiped us 3-4 times in a row, and I was like, yeah, I have to be done. I remember days like that. Like, no matter how good you are, you always have those days.
It's like one of those things, like somebody could have like a lot of stuff going on in their personal life, or they could have had like a really long day at work, or there's those days where it's like, man, my fingers just like do not work. Like I cannot press my buttons. Like
oh, that's a good point. Going into like the psychology of it, a lot of people don't realize just how much their mental and emotional state affects all aspects of their life, even just playing a video game. Like, you might not realize that you're upset about something, and that thing that you're upset about, that you don't realize you're upset about, is actually making you play worse. And it's a lot of like, you just have to be aware. There's a lot of self-awareness that is needed, is what I'm saying.
I actually started doing something. I was talking to you know, Gwil.
Yeah,
I was talking to Gwil, I think like last week, because we were doing prog practice for next year, and he was like watching my VOD, and there was a point where I like took a deep breath after getting hit by a mechanic, and that was something that I had been working on for like 6 months at this point, like back when I was like even progging in WoW. And he like pointed it out to me. He's like, this was like a really good mental reset that you did. And I was like, dude, like I can't even believe that you like recognize that. That's so awesome. Like that's something that I've been trying to like subconsciously work on, because it's something that I personally noticed of. I get tilted mid-pull on something stupid that shouldn't tilt me, and then the rest of the fight, that's all I'm thinking about, and I'm not thinking about all the other things that I should be focusing on. So
yeah, I feel you. I have times like that too, and for me, what I do is I tell myself, okay, I just made a mistake, and I was like, okay, whatever. I make the same mistake again. I was like, okay, now I need to focus. What is wrong with me? I take a deep breath and I think to myself, okay,
what a wonderful
I don't know what's
world.
wrong with me, but I'm going to not make the same mistake again. I'm going to be conscious about it, and I'm gonna try my best to not make that same mistake, and without like getting emotionally worked up. Because the thing is, like, when you overly focus, then you're actually more likely to make the mistake
Yeah.
because you actually tunnel.
Yep.
And when a lot of people, when they say I'm not going to make that mistake again, they're actually secretly upset, and
Yeah.
that upsetness actually also makes them more likely to make a mistake. So what you really need to do is take a deep breather and say things are going to be okay. I did make a mistake. I'm going to be more conscious about it, but it's okay. You have to be able to tell yourself it's okay.
Yep. I totally agree. Taking a deep breath, try to get it out of your mind, and just keep moving on and focus on the next thing.
Yeah, and a lot of this applies to in real life situations too. Like a lot of things, a lot of high intensity situations is about being able to take a breath and saying things are okay, and I'm going to be okay, and I'm going to do it right this time. Like just giving yourself that space, even momentarily.
For sure. So, yeah, I guess we can kind of segue off of talking about doing some next tier stuff. What are you doing
Sure.
next tier? What are your plans?
So next year I am doing week one with my week one group for sure, and I don't know if I'm gonna get week one this time because Square made the choice to destroy all other regions except Japan and say we are going to release Savages on the week of Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my group will at least get week two, but I'm hoping it's a week one. But I'm not upset if it's not a week one because, like I said, it's falling on the week of Christmas.
Yeah.
Nothing can be done. There's no point in like getting upset over it.
Yeah, it'll be kind of
Although,
rough,
yeah.
especially for NA as a whole. Like, it's how do you even motivate the people who are like, I want to do week one. I'm not quite sure if like we can, but like we want to push for it, you know? And then it just kind of discourages those people by being, well, there's 2 days gone. So
yeah, this might not be the tier for the people who just want to try week one. I'm gonna be honest.
yeah.
That said, for the people watching, for anyone who's playing Final Fantasy, if you get the chance to do week one, even if you're not doing hardcore, you should definitely try it. Because the fights, in my opinion, are the most fun during the early weeks when there's less guides and when there's not gear to carry you. So you're really just your prog is really based on your raw progging skill and not like gear stats or anything. It's a great time. The fights are the most fun then, in my opinion. Week one is an excellent experience that I think everyone should be able to try.
Well, best of luck. Hopefully Christmas doesn't mess you guys up.
Yeah. The goal is to get geared up in 48 weeks since my group is doing split clears as well.
Mhm.
And after that is of course the Dragon Song War Ultimate unless we get screwed again.
Oh.
In which case I guess I'll just be parsing and speeding. Speaking of which,
I was gonna say, are you doing speeds? Are you doing speeds?
Yeah,
next year?
Next tier I'm for sure gonna do speeds. This tier I subbed for some groups occasionally to do speeds, but that's about it. But I actually recently made a baby speed group. I'm the only one with speeds experience in there, and I've been helping them learn how speeds are and learn like how to feed into raid buffs, and also just giving them speeds experience because it's fun. It's something to do, and it's a fun team activity.
And it's a great learning experience. Like, you learn so much from doing speed runs. Like, I don't think people understand how much you can actually grow by doing speeds, because you learn how to like you were talking about earlier, fit everything into this tiny little raid buff window. But then there's times where you have to like move those buffs around and learn how to play around the different cooldowns and stuff that you have and resources that you have at that time. So learning how to like not go with
Right.
your muscle memory of pressing the buttons how you normally press it is a different game,
Hmm.
really.
Right. And that's exactly what we were talking about before. That's why I think it's good to get speeds experience, because again, you want to get both sides, both parsing and speeds, and also prog. But prog is, in my opinion, in a totally different realm of its
Yeah.
own, and it's hard to build your prog skills. Like, it's the most difficult thing to build, because you really don't get the chance to like blind or fresh prog that often.
Yeah.
You actually rarely get to do it.
Yeah, it's kind of hard doing like prog practice, finding fights where it's like, oh well,
Yeah.
three of us know how to do this fight. The other five don't really know what's going on. So you guys kind of act like you don't know what you're doing.
Hmm.
Sometimes it works out, sometimes it's kind of hard, but um tell me about your ultimate experience since we're on the topic of prog. How many ultimates
Sure.
have you cleared? What's your favorite one? What's your least favorite? I guess that puts one in the middle since there's only three. So
Right.
go ahead and rate them.
So I have cleared all of the ultimates. I've done all of them, and I enjoyed pretty much all of them. The one that I enjoyed the most is T, which is the Epic of Alexander, for those of you who aren't as familiar with the ultimates. It's based on the level 70 Alexander raids. And it's also the hardest one, and is the one that requires the most time commitment versus the other two ultimates, because of its difficulty and also how punishing it is. A single mistake by a single person can literally mean you restart all over again. And you could be like 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes into the fight, and someone messes up, and there you go, you're back from the first second of the fight.
Yeah.
It's definitely my favorite.
It's
The
mine too. It's so good.
I don't. As for the my second favorite, I'm not sure where to put it. I'm not sure where to. I'm not sure if I can decide between them. The other two are Ukab, unending coil of
Yeah.
Bahamut. I don't even remember anymore.
Yeah, that's right. I
Yeah,
think.
the unending coil of Bahamut and the Uwu ultimate. So basically what is it? The level 50 Ultima fight turned into an ultimate. And between them, Uwu is definitely the easiest, because you can definitely like pug it, and also because it's the mechanics are just not as punishing, and most of them aren't as fast paced, but it's still harder than most content. And it's still fun. I think it's still pretty fun, especially if you have a team that you enjoy playing with. And then there's Ukab, which is more punishing than Uwu and is harder, but not quite as punishing or as hard as T, because you can have literally like 20 deaths in Ukab and still clear. The
Yeah.
DPS check at least is a joke, and the mechanics aren't as punishing as T, but it's still very fun. I would suggest for anyone who hasn't done the ultimates to do all of them. If you're a new raider, my my best suggestion is to really start off with Uwu, because it's the easiest and it'll give you a segue into a higher end rating. Now, if you want to go all out, I mean, you can start with T, but T has its own difficulties. Like I said, it's punishing, but not only that, T groups tend to disband more frequently because people get frustrated with each other.
Yeah.
So finding a good group for T is harder, but the fights are all very much worth doing. I suggest everyone do all the ultimates. They're just fun and engaging, and they're hard content. And it's good for also for the completionists out there. And you get shiny weapons. Kind of hard to argue with shiny weapons. Not to say they're all that great, but they're still nice and shiny weapons.
I think all the T weapons are great. Most of the Uwu weapons are great. UCOB,
Yeah,
I'm kind of
Ukab is hit or miss in my
yeah.
opinion. There are some I like. Like the samurai sword is very nice, and the
Yeah.
monk fists are nice. But I'm hit or miss about the other Ukab weapons.
To your point of Uwu though, And I think one of the reasons why it is regarded as like the easier of all the ultimates, I think the main gimmick for that fight, which is, I mean, I guess not really a spoiler at this point, but the main gimmick of the carrying the buff through the different phases, I'll just leave it at that. With it being learned during like the early first kills and stuff, like, and then that being translated into actual, I guess, fight descriptions and stuff like that, or guides. I think that has helped it be a much easier fight. And I think if you didn't know that going into it, it would be a rude awakening and you would not know what the hell is happening. Like blind progging that fight would be really hard, I think.
Like, blind progging it would be much harder for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, we can do a couple more questions and then go ahead and do like some chat questions if anyone has any. And go from there.
Sure.
Yeah. I'll just let people start putting stuff in for now, and we can just kind of keep wrapping up some of the other questions that we had.
Yeah.
And just pull
I
random
guess
ones
we
as
could talk about our favorite jobs for each role. What jobs do you like for each role?
Melee, ninja, for sure.
Oh, ninja is very good.
Yeah.
I have a toss up between monk and ninja.
Monk is fun, actually.
Monk is so much fun.
It's actually
I always
really
thought
fun.
that I would hate it.
Same.
I always thought that I would hate it.
Yeah.
But like, it's just so much fun because it's so active. You do so much.
Yeah. And like the positionals, and I'm interested to see what they're doing in Endwalker with the like mudra thing that they kind of had going on.
Yeah, it does look like mudras, doesn't it?
Yeah. That'll be pretty interesting. So Smile File says, how do you go from a crafting main to a #1 bard? Seems like a really big jump.
It is a really big jump. So the story of how I started raiding at all more seriously is that people told me that I don't raid at all anyways, and I got kind of upset about it. I don't know why it made me upset, but it did. So I started raiding and I proved myself. And then I realized I really enjoyed it, so I did it more and more. And I slowly got into optimization around actually the God Kefka tier 08S. And around there, I was like, oh, hey, I was doing pretty good. I'm having fun doing these skills. I want to see if I can get better. And so I read a lot of guides and I just played more and more and jumped into random PF parse parties. I cleared the tier. And then I just kept playing and eventually got where I am. I didn't get to be like top tier #1 bard in Stormblood. In Stormblood, I only got up to like 90, like high oranges, which for people who don't know is between 95 and 98.9th percentile. So I was very good, but I wasn't one of the best. I wasn't like the best or one of the best back then. It wasn't until this expansion actually where I became one of the best, and I was like, okay, this expansion, I'm gonna really push myself and see how far I can go. And it just happened that I got really, really good parsing. I was like, wow, this is a lot of fun. I'm doing great. It feels good to play. It feels good to parse, and it feels good to do good.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I was like, I want more of this. I'm gonna do it more, and I just played from there, and that's how I went. And became basically one of the best bards.
You got the itch, man.
Yeah.
I was looking at your logs earlier today, and I don't think you've had a single Eden tier so far where you've been out of the top 10. Like, I think
I'm single digits.
I think your highest rank is like 8. Like, I think that's
the other thing is, like, I could probably be higher ranked this tier. Like this tier, I'm rank 8, but I don't feel like parsing so the way Bard works is that Bard is the second most RNG class in the game, and so all the top 10 ranks are basically either equal skill or very close.
Yeah.
I would say so optimization, for those who don't know, isn't just skill alone, it's RNG. But you can't dismiss the RNG element, but you can't dismiss the skill element either. If you're literally all purples, you still have a lot to learn. It is not all RNG. If you're oranges, you're doing very good, but there is RNG involved, but there are still niche optimizations you need to learn. If you are low pinks, you still have very niche optimizations to learn. Once you start getting into the very high pinks, like top 20s, top 30s, I would say more top 20 ranks for fights.
That's fair.
Then you start reaching the realm where it's basically all RNG, and this is even more true for Bard, because not only do you have the normal crit and direct hit RNG, you also have proc RNG, and it's RNG is only second to Dancer, which is literally the most RNG class in the game. So for Bard, when you're looking at bards, if they're in the top like 10 or 15, they're probably all roughly equal skill. At least in terms of potential, I don't know how you can't look at consistency like that, but that's a whole different discussion anyways.
Yeah.
But at the very least, their maximum potential is pretty similar.
So
not
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay.
No, I insist.
I was gonna move on to the next question, so if you have any last things to say.
I actually was gonna move to.
So
I was gonna do the same. We had the same thought.
Okay, so Nyalia, I think that's how I say it. Nyalia-chan says, which healer is preferred in high-end raids? And I'm assuming let's start with, because I'm sure you and I have the same thought. Let's start with parsing, and then let's talk speeds, and then let's talk, or actually better yet, let's talk progression, then we'll talk parsing and speeds.
Yeah, sure. So for progression, I actually think White Mage is the best healer. What do you think?
I don't really prog much, so
here's why I think
I have less experience with prog than you.
Here's why I think that it's actually White Mage versus Scholar and Ast. White Mage just has so much raw healing, and they don't really have MP issues, to the point where you can just spam out heals if all you're trying to do is clear. And it has a lot of personal DPS. And also the skill ceiling isn't as high as Astro, so it's not as prohibitive, so it's good for all tiers of play.
Yeah.
That is why I think White Mage is the best prog healer, because it has a good balance of skill floor, skill ceiling. It has very strong heals that it can spam. Its raw heals are very strong, and also you don't need to be like overly big brain to get into it.
Yeah, I think I actually had my very first static, and my very first like prog static. I think we actually had someone who was like trying to play Astro, and like he was like so hyper focused on optimizing the card play that like he was really struggling.
Yeah, that's the thing. Astro is like, and we can segue into this after. Astro is the best for parse and speeds, but the thing is that it has such a high skill floor and skill ceiling that it's actually more effective to just play White Mage and get through the prog quickly.
For prog, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing
now,
too.
talking about, sorry, go ahead.
Well, you were probably gonna go say what I was gonna say. The other thing too is like in parsing, Astro is like mandatory because they're the only healer in the game. Like your Scholar and your White Mage don't cast healing ability. I mean, they cast some, but they're not healing.
That's my gripe with the current state of healers.
Yeah.
Astro is literally too good. In the high-end rating community, like if you're like parsing or speeding, like you said, Astro is mandatory, and that's because they do literally all the healing. They have the most heals because they can cast huge heals during their OGCDs, and they have a 1.5 second cast on their GCD damage skill, and they can just weave. Also, they have cards, so they have the best damage and the best healing. Astro is literally mandatory. If you don't take an Astro in speeds or parsing, you are griefing. Like you just are. That's how good Astro is. You have to have one.
It's fun too. I love Astro's
Yeah,
like the
I
one
actually
healer
like
that I
Astro.
enjoy playing.
I actually used to like White Mage most in Stormblood, but I actually started to really like Astro this year. It's fun.
We'll save. Actually, no. Let's go ahead and shoot Churro's comment of "Have you confessed your love for feet tacos yet?" I believe that
I'm
is
not the one who was.
I believe
Okay,
that's a reference to our Uwu prog, but I don't recall. Maybe it's not.
It is a reference to our Uwu prog, and I'm just gonna say, I'm not the one who was in love with feet tacos. I presented feet tacos, but I was not the one in love with it. You guys were the ones who obsessed over it and wouldn't stop talking about it. You guys are the ones that keep bringing it up. So I'm just saying, it's not me.
Oh man. Let's see. An actual question is best advice for a WoW Mythic Raider refugee from Noyaz. I hope I said that right.
So my best recommendation for a WoW Mythic refugee is that know that a lot of your skills will actually translate into Final Fantasy rating, but a lot of it also won't, and you need to understand that. And I'm saying this is because a lot of people who are top tier in other games play other games and go into the high end community, and they get really cocky and arrogant, and that stops them from growing and becoming better players. So I'm not saying that you're bad or anything, but you're not good either. You're not quite starting fresh, but you have to again keep an open mind and really try to learn. Don't get too overconfident. Know that it's a different game. Know that while certain mechanical skills translate, others do not.
Yeah, and I think. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say you actually did a lot of WoW Mythic rating. So what would you say? What would you say is some good advice?
I mean, all of that is very valid. I think the number one thing, like you were saying, is just like humble yourself. Like realize that you have a lot of information to learn, but also like don't look past what you know. Like you know how to roll a global if you're mythic rating. You know how to use mitigation if you're mythic rating. You know how to position yourself in raids. Now you just need to learn the nuances of Final Fantasy and be able to apply both of your skill sets together and play. Like I think something that a lot of people from the WoW community struggle with and they get upset about or whatever is like snapshotting. That's a huge skill gap in this game.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot from WoW Raiders actually. That's a good point.
Yeah, snapshotting. I mean, I did the same thing too. It's like, dude, how did that hit me? Like, this is ridiculous. Why is this even a thing? And then you start to learn how to manipulate snapshotting and how to play around snapshotting, and then that's when things get pretty spicy and fun. So it sucks coming over the FF from WoW where like there is that server to client, I guess, lag,
delay,
if you want to call it delay, yeah, whatever. But I think that's part of the nuance of the game, and it's part of learning how to be good at the game. And it takes practice, but being open-minded, humbling yourself, asking questions, learning from the people who are trying to help you is the best thing you can do for yourself. Ask questions. Don't be scared to ask questions. People are nice in this game.
Sure.
Like it's weird coming from WoW because like if I go into a WoW class Discord and I ask a question, someone's gonna answer it, and I have no idea whether they're trolling me or not. Like zero idea. So most of the stuff that I did learning in WoW was my own research on like my own time and actually like looking through. I mean, I look through logs in FF2, but people troll a lot and WoW.
Right. Yeah. Final Fantasy has a overall very encouraging community. It's much more open and friendly than other MMOs and games, especially competitive games. Like a lot of other MMOs and games can honestly get quite toxic, and it's not to say Final Fantasy doesn't have any toxic elements, but
Hmm.
people are way more friendly, welcoming in Final Fantasy.
Another thing too, I'm sorry if we keep beating on this question, but another thing as well is like if you're trying to get into raiding, like you're a mythic raider in WoW and you're trying to get into raiding in Final Fantasy, like once you unlock the raids, raid, like play the game, join practice groups, die 100 times, however many times it takes you to learn the fights, like learn the fights inside and out, learn how the mechanics interact, learn how your rotation interacts with the mechanics, because your rotation, like the entire game of raiding in Final Fantasy is a dance. You are literally like doing a choreographed dance, and it's about how you perform that dance and how you optimize that dance is how well you will do. And it's really hard thing to get away from in WoW, where it's a lot of RNG, so you're not really paying attention to like what's going on with regards to your rotation as well as the same time as the fight. Like you have to play more reactively in WoW, I guess, if that's what I'm trying to say. Kind of like Bard almost, but Bard's a little different. But yeah, learning like just raid, like play the game. You have to play the game to get better. Apply yourself and raid. That's like the
For
way
sure.
to get into raiding. Join practice groups. They won't bite.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. All right. Here's a good question. The next question, serious question. Do you ever get a little discouraged? If you do, what do you do? What do you do, Ty?
I get discouraged. I'm kind of a pessimist, if I'm being honest, which is why I like helping people, because I don't want them to be a pessimist. I personally have to like talk myself through something, like, and actually realize the situation and understand that it's like it's not as bad as I make it out to be. But if you're talking about discouraged in the sense of like, let's say I have a goal that I set, right? Let's say, since we're talking about the Parse Discord earlier, let's say I get into the Parse Discord and I am a purple parser and I am discouraged that I can't get oranges and I want to get my orange rank, right?
Right.
Find something. This is what I personally do because I'm a psychopath. Find something that like motivates the absolute shit out of you, whether it's like some person who's like super top rank of your class that does super well and like you like the kind of person they are or whatever, and just like really focus on like what they're doing and just set this like mindset of like, I'm going to be like them, like I will achieve what they've done. Or on the flip side, if there's someone who's like discouraging you, like someone is actively making you discouraged by like being mean or whatever, I use that as motivation to prove people wrong. Like I am a very big like, oh, I can't do this, like watch, like you'll see. I'm a very big person about that, so I use those kind of things to motivate me and keep me moving forward. Is I really like to look for people who are like looking down on me or trying to hold me back, and I use that to motivate me to push forward.
Right.
What about you? What do you do?
For me, I try to take a step back first. I take a breather. I take like a small break, maybe a few days, maybe a week, and ask myself what my goals are and how I can get there, and I talk myself through it and say, why am I not getting there? And like without being emotional, and ask myself, what am I doing wrong? And try to say, okay, here's what I'm doing wrong. Here's what I'm going to do. And like say, I'm going to try out this for a little bit, and I'm going to try this for a little bit, and just keep going. Keep trying small things to push yourself. And if you keep trying small things enough times, those small things add up to larger things and you'll eventually hit your goal. Basically, you have to give yourself a breather and a break, a room. Give yourself room to just reset and give yourself time. Now, if you're taking breaks like a year or two at a time, like that's not good either. You want to meet your goals, so you have to say, am I discouraging myself so much that I'm now afraid to try? And if you are, then you have to say, you have to like force yourself and just say, okay, I'm gonna try a little bit at least right now, and keep trying a little bit at a time.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing too is like if you're setting a goal, right? And this is me speaking. I don't know if I'm alone on this or if other people think this way, but like if I set a goal and then I am like struggling to stay motivated to achieve that goal, I like take a step back and I go like, okay, how much do I actually care about this? Like, is this something
Right.
that I genuinely want and I genuinely want to invest the time into? Like, and I like, is this something that I want to accomplish? How bad do I want this?
Hmm.
Right? Like,
Right.
if you're going for, I don't know, Golden Girls in the Parse Discord, like, and you're so close, but you can't get there, like, don't give up, right? Keep pushing yourself, because if you really, really, really want it, like, just keep going until the end. And if it works out, you will be so much happier with yourself than if you would have given up. Because
Right.
if you give up now, then you'll never accomplish it anyway.
Right. The thing, I agree with that. I would say that it's better to try and fail rather than to give up. Like if you try and fail, it'll hurt, but at least you can say that you tried your best and that you hit, and even though you didn't hit your goals, you got really damn far.
Yeah.
And you have to encourage yourself like that. The thing is, if you just give up, then you didn't try at all and you're just stuck. You're stuck. That's it.
Um,
I mean, that's not.
well,
And
and it
there's
doesn't
also
change the
still a
outcome
fine
either.
balance.
So
Yeah, there's still a fine balance. Like, there's a difference between trying and like getting so obsessive it's detrimental. You don't want that either. So try to balance it out and ask yourself where you are on the scale.
I agree. Let's see. Oh, actually, there was a question earlier that I wanted to ask.
Oh, sure.
I saw someone. I don't really pay much attention to the chat while we're like doing the meat of the discussion, but I did see one somewhere. Oh, wait, no, that's not it. Maybe I'm trolling.
I don't know. Oh, someone did ask, do you guys prefer playing with a mouse and keyboard or controller?
I like mouse and keyboard, but I've been playing MMOs for 2005 was when I started playing WoW. So what is that? 16 years.
Yeah. I like mouse and keyboard as well. Like, I'm not saying you can't be good on controller. There are people who are literally top 20 on controller, and I have no idea how they do it. Like, you can do it, but bluntly, you have more range of motion on a keyboard and mouse. I'm just saying, but there's more potential there. Now, if you want to play on a controller, then that's perfectly fine. That's your prerogative. But that said, both are fine, and I do prefer mouse and keyboard.
There are a lot of good players that play on controller, like a lot.
Yeah, there are a lot.
Yeah, a lot of the top gamers out there
Play on controller, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, what do you think makes someone like truly a top tier player? Like, I think we kind of touched on this earlier, but like, what is your like perfect picture of the best player that exists out there in Final Fantasy?
Extreme mechanical consistency. They basically almost never mess up mechanics. They almost never mess up greeting. They almost never mess up their rotation. They know how to play selfishly. They know how to play into buffs. And those would be like my 5 criteria.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I personally don't have any more questions. If the chat doesn't have any more questions, or if you don't have any more questions, or if you want to talk about any other things, I'm more than happy to.
I think you mentioned that you wanted to ask before about cross-world data center and working with the other parsing communities. I know you mentioned that once before.
Mm-hmm.
I tried with a specific server that I'm not going to mention, and they were not so receptive. But I didn't try with others. But I'm not against it. We will definitely accept people from other data centers. As for working with other parsing discords, the official ones, I'm really not sure. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not against it, but I'm just not sure.
I mean, again, whatever direction that you want to take your server, right? And I mean,
yeah,
eventually,
well,
I think it's going to probably get to a point where it's like, especially when cross-world data centers open up, it's going to get to a point where it's like, well, how exclusive, I guess, do you want it to be? How, like, how do you keep the quality of player that you're looking for in there to be the level you want?
Right now, the Crystal ERParsers is Crystal's basically most prominent and like definitive community for high-end content on Crystal. There are other parse discords, but they're either for baby parsers or they're basically not active. And one of the questions about the parse discord, I guess, is how long will it be around? How long will it last? And the answer to that is I don't know. At the very least, it'll last as long as I play Final Fantasy. After I quit Final Fantasy, I don't know where it'll go from there. That's a big TBD, to be determined.
Well, I guess I'm not one to tell you to not quit. But please don't quit. We need you on Crystal.
I will try.
Yeah.
Oh, here we have a question.
Yeah, from Melody. How do you not get discouraged if you're stuck in pug hell for weeks on end and you don't have time for a static? That is a very
great question.
So it's a great question, but it's also something that I actually hear all the time. I feel like it's a very common thing, and it's hard.
Yeah.
A hard question to answer.
When your schedule literally doesn't ever align for a static, like that is tough. Mm-hmm. Because I used to be a PF progger as well once upon a time during during Stormblood. I did PF'd most everything. I eventually got into a static for the 04 S tier, but 08 S tier and 012 S tier I did completely in PF. And boy, was it awful. I don't know how to tell someone how not to get discouraged. I guess the only thing I did was I just picked myself back up every time and just hammered my head at the wall, and just kept going at it and saying, I'm going to clear, I'm going to do it. And like, I actually almost quit Final Fantasy during the 08 S tier because the PFs were so bad that I was like crying, thinking I'm never gonna clear.
Yeah, it's hard, especially if your schedule doesn't permit it. Like, and it happens so frequently. I guess my advice is, like, on the days that you can, like, even if it's once or twice, preferably at the least twice a week, like, get into PF, get into some practice groups, get into some completion groups
Yeah.
or complete groups if you're that far into the fight, and hopefully eventually you will find a group of players that want to keep playing with you, because like that's how I found my first static in this game. Was I was pugging E2S. There was a 7 of 8 static who was missing someone that night. I subbed for them. The next day, that same guy was missing. They messaged me, he's like, hey, do you want to come play again? It's like, sure. And then after that, they're like, I don't think this guy's going to come back. Do you want to just be our 8th? I was like, yeah, I haven't been in a raid team before, so
Yeah.
good luck.
The only thing you can really do is give yourself small breaks, like a few days, and then keep going back at it. And eventually, hopefully, you find something. And the other thing is, like, if you have a social network, ask other people to prog with you. Like, if
Yeah.
you have people to prog with, whether it's whether you're further ahead in prog or they're further ahead in prog, progging with someone else will always make it more it'll make it less
It'll make it more tolerable.
More tolerable.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
I've had a hard time finishing.
It's really difficult to, I guess, be forgiving to the people you don't know. Like you can get more frustrated more quickly. So
Yeah, but yeah, the only thing you can really do is keep trying. Hopefully, you find a semi-static, even if not a full static, and just keep trying. And also use your social network. Don't be afraid to ask friends if they'll prog with you, if they'll help you, whatnot. Just keep at it.
yeah.
That's really all you can do, honestly. Like, it's hard not to get discouraged. You just,
yeah.
like we said before, you just have to take that breather and just keep going at it after.
Yeah, I wish I could give better advice on that, because
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I don't know what to say. I really don't.
Because scheduling is like half of the battle. I mean, even high-end speed teams struggle with scheduling. It's like, oh dude, we have these 8 people, like we're gonna kick ass, and it's like, oh, I can't make Tuesdays. Okay, well, we have the rest of oh, well, I can't, this other person, I can't make Wednesdays and Fridays. It's like, okay, well, now we only have Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And it's like, well, I can't do weekends, so now we only have Thursday, Friday, like, and it cuts down really quick. And then, like, if your schedule's already tight in and of itself, now you have to accommodate that as well, and it can be really difficult.
Yeah.
So
if you have even a small amount of people willing to prog with you, like even just 1 or 2 people, you could try using like Win2Meet or something and seeing when you guys could meet the prog together, even if it's just in PF. That'll, I like Tyci, make it more tolerable.
So a question from will the parsing Discord have set strats that should be used in parties for more consistency? I'm assuming this is referring to Endwalker.
Yes, yes, excellent question. That's actually a really great question, because I plan on totally changing how Crystal PF works. It's a big grand scheme that I have no idea if it'll work. But to start off by answering your question, yes, the Parse Discord is going to soon have a strats category, and we're going to have a strats channel. We're going to have a strats category with a channel for every fight, and it's going to show what strats we use along with macros. I'm going to make it so that Crystal PF starts using PF macros from the top down, at least for parsing.
Sweet. That's exciting.
And that's a big goal. I'm looking forward to seeing if we can make it a thing, because chat macros really make positioning and deciding stuff a lot easier, and you also don't need to save like 20 waymarks.
To branch off of that, I guess my own question is, do you also plan on having like parse strats with the descriptions, blah blah blah, whatever is needed in there, and then like a set of speed strats? Because while the parse and speed strats can be similar, sometimes they vary, and it's probably good for the people who are wanting to push for those new speed rolls that you're shooting for to at least be educated, so that they can also practice and learn.
That's a great question, and I honestly don't have an answer for you right now. I tentatively want to say yes,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to have to. I'm going to need to work with the speed teams, and hopefully come to a consensus on what kind of speed strats we would use. And same thing with parsing. I'd have to work with the top parsing groups and like week one groups as well, and see what strats we're going to use and see if we can come up with good strats. And
Yeah.
also, ideally, we'll have descriptions, macros, and POV videos.
Yeah.
Ideally.
I think another thing that like might be a bit difficult with the speed section specifically is a lot of speed teams, while they do very similar things, are also very nuanced.
Yeah.
Because a lot of like, I mean, when you're in speeds, you're hyper optimizing. You're like literally optimizing autos. You're optimizing true norths as melee. Like, I know that my tank in my speed group is going to turn the boss at this second while I'm going to hit a positional. I have to have a true north here, right? And like that's like where things get super niche amongst groups. And I think that's actually like a strategic thing in speeds that people might overlook. But I just wanted to at least see what your thoughts were on that, and it'd be a good idea. Who knows?
Yeah.
Another question from Okami. Question for Harumi. Do they know of high-end parse cords for the other NADCs, specifically Primal? So I think
Yes,
you had
I
said
do, actually.
you know, or you've talked with
Yes.
both of them. So yeah.
So there for Primal has two high-end parse discords. One is one is flat out bad, don't use it, and the other that came up semi recently is good and I would recommend it. I'll DM it to you if you want it, or Tyci can link it. Hold on, I'll actually get you Tyci a link right now and he can link it in the chat. All right, here you go, Tyci. This is the Primal Parse Discord that I would recommend.
Okay, I have linked it for you. Maya says
they're pretty good. They're still semi-active. I think Crystal is more active right now, but they're still pretty active. So if you want to play on Primal, you have a Primal mode, I would recommend them.
Maya says, will there be separate ways to find groups for parsing and groups for speeds? I was muted in Discord. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Maya said, will there be separate ways to find groups for parsing and groups for speeds with the implementation of speed ranks?
Right now I want to say no, because I feel like you can just specify that in your party description. So tentatively right now I want to say no.
Yeah, I feel that's fair. I feel the other thing too, and I'm sure that you're gonna figure this all out. Like, it's gonna take some trial and error, to be honest. With the speed ranking stuff, but a lot of the parse kills with parse groups from the Discord are speed kills, unironically. Or I guess ironically, but you just have 8 gamers and
yeah.
It's normally pretty pretty quick for the most part. It's not like hyper optimized quick, but it's pretty quick.
I mean, like the Parse Discord has like top 20, top 10 speed kills.
Well, if there's no more questions from either you or or the gamers in the chat, we can call it a day.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else I have to say other than just know your goals and keep reaching for your goals and keep trying.
Yeah, I agree.
And you can definitely reach your goals. Just make sure you use your resources and ask for help as well, whether it be from people you know or from people you don't know. Like, people are willing to help. Just don't be shy and make sure you ask.
People that apply themselves always set themselves up for success, and
Yeah.
the people that humble themselves and apply themselves those are the sponges that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Rar said, networking is so important, and I think that's something that the Parse Discord does well. But thank you again so much for the Parse Discord. Like, I literally wouldn't know half the shit, probably 90% of the people I know in Final Fantasy without that server. I will post the link to the card again, and since this will be going on YouTube, I will also post that in the description of the video for whoever is watching this on YouTube. I had a good time talking with you. You had some really good answers. Like, I was not expecting a lot of the answers that you had to some of these questions, so I was impressed.
Yeah, it was fun talking to you. It was good. I'm always willing to answer questions. It was good talking to you.
Yeah, it was a good time. But I'll see you around. Again, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out. If you guys want to see any more of these in the future with other people, let me know. And if you need help and you see me and Harumi around, I'm sure we would both be more than happy to help out if we have the time. So yeah, thanks again, Harumi. Everyone
no problem.
Everyone who hung out and watched, I appreciate all of you. Thank you all so much for, holy shit, we had a lot, like so many follows. Survivor, thank you for the sub for 23 months. That's ridiculous. But you guys have a great night. I'll do another one of these in probably 2 weeks, like I've been doing. I've kind of been on the schedule of 2 weeks. Every other week I do one of these XIV questions things, and on the off weeks of that I just put out a YouTube video about whatever's on my mind. And yeah, thank you guys again. Y'all have a good night, and
thank you everyone. Have a good night.
We'll see y'all later.